you very much, Gilbert, and thank you for the kind invitation to your conference today. Let me first apprise you of the forward-looking statements and direct you to the company's regulatory and SEC filings. Coherus is an immuno-oncology company developing and commercializing a diversified portfolio of next-generation immuno-oncology therapies in combinations that potentially can extend patient survival across a number of tumor types. The recent US FDA approval of LOQTORZI for nasopharyngeal cancer and multiple clinical stage immuno-oncology candidates targeting the tumor microenvironment underscore our deep commitment to innovation in immuno-oncology, while the established infrastructure of our biosimilars business enables better treatment options and access outcomes for patients. Coherus is headquartered in California, near San Francisco. Let me also thank my good friends at Junshi Biosciences and my colleague, Ning Li, the CEO of Junshi, for their partnership in our successful bringing forward of toripalimab, now LOQTORZI, in the United States in approval. This is the first Chinese PD-1 approved in the United States. Our combined IO pipeline has a number of near-term catalysts in 2023 and 2024, which drive our success. Toripalimab, now commercially known as LOQTORZI, was FDA approved a few weeks ago. In a moment, my colleague, Paul Reeder, will tell you about the commercial launch. We also have a novel molecule targeting the tumor microenvironment, casdozokitug, which my good colleague, Dr. LaValle, will describe. Further, we have a TIGIT in conjunction with our good friends at Junshi in development, as well as a CCR8 molecule and ILT4. So with that now, I will let Dr. LaValle describe the unique properties of LOQTORZI, formerly known as toripalimab, as developed by our friends at Junshi.
Thank you, Denny, and good day all. Toripalimab is a next generation PD-1 inhibitor with several unique properties, including a unique epitope binding at the FG loop and high potency in binding to the PD-1 receptor. Next slide. LOQTORZI was approved October 27th of this year as the first Chinese PD-1 approved in the United States for nasopharyngeal carcinoma. It is approved for all lines of therapy and all patient subsets based on the survival data from the clinical studies run in China. So Paul?
Good day, everyone. Nasopharyngeal carcinoma, which is a very common disease in China and many Asian companies, is more of a rare cancer in the United States. About 2,000 patients are drug treatable every year. And as Teresa mentioned, our indication enables LOQTORZI plus chemotherapy to be used in patients in all lines of therapy, including first line. Currently, in the United States, 60% of patients treated with NPC are prescribed only chemotherapy for their treatment. And so our commercial efforts will be focused on ensuring that LOQTORZI be immediately added to the chemotherapy regimen the patient is currently receiving. We believe the market at peak could be up to $200 million. We believe that LOQTORZI plus chemotherapy has the potential to become the new standard of care in nasopharyngeal carcinoma. And that is anchored on the clinical trials that were conducted and published in JAMA this week. This is the Jupiter-02 trial that looked at patients in the frontline setting. It's a landmark study with results never seen before in any PD-1 product. The data was presented at ASCO, informing on the overall survival data. And you could see in the data chart below the Kaplan-Meier curves, which are very impressive, leading to a 37% reduction in the risk of death versus chemotherapy alone. So these data are quite compelling and very, very impressive. Our commercial launch activities for LOQTORZI have commenced since approval, and this product will be fully synergistic with our existing oncology commercial team selling UDENYCA, which is a biosimilar to the reference product Neulasta, pegfilgrastim. Our sales team has identified over 2,000 oncologists that treat 80% of the nasopharyngeal carcinoma, and we've been reaching them since approval. We are also engaging with the health insurers and the payers in the United States to ensure that LOQTORZI can be approved and has access for patients as soon as product is in the supply chain, which we expect to be in January. We also are building a patient community, the first ever in the United States for nasopharyngeal carcinoma, and we have enrolled over 2,000 patients or caregivers into that community for which we will then engage.
In addition to the approval in nasopharyngeal carcinoma based on the Jupiter-2 study, toripalimab has demonstrated overall survival benefit to multiple cancer types and multiple phase 3 studies, including the CHOICE-1 study, which was in the first-line treatment for advanced non-small cell lung cancer, which has demonstrated an improvement in progression-free survival and overall survival for these lung cancer patients. Next slide. Based on its unique epitope and potent binding, we have observed some differences clinically with toripalimab treatment in cancer patients. In this study shown here, which is an esophageal squamous cell carcinoma, we see in the two top graphs that the blue line shows benefit over the red line, the toripalimab treatment, irrespective of PD-L1 high or PD-L1 low. This is in contrast to what's observed with other PD-1 inhibitors, such as pembrolizumab, where we see higher activity in PD-L1 high patients. And thus, we are excited to continue to develop toripalimab in the United States in combination with other IO agents, building on the efficacy that has been demonstrated in multiple phase 3 studies. So next slide. These are a number of the studies that have been shown by our partner, Coherus BioSciences, in early lines in adjuvant or neoadjuvant tumors, in first-line metastatic locally advanced patients, as well as in refractory cancer patients. Toripalimab has demonstrated activity across a broad range of tumor types. Next slide. And our focus, as I mentioned, is really to look to extend patient survival, as shown by these Kaplan-Meier curves, to increase the number of patients we are benefiting with toripalimab treatment. And thus our focus is on novel combinations to improve PD-1 therapy outcomes. Next slide. So we will be showing data with the pipeline in the next year, with multiple milestones upcoming and disclosures of combination data as well as monotherapy data with agents that modify the tumor microenvironment. So immune suppressive cells, such as the T regulatory cells, the myeloid-derived suppressor cells, the tumor-associated macrophages, to really take off the brakes and help maximize the T cell and NK cell killing of the tumor. Next slide. So the pipeline that Coherus has and is in developing is CHS-114, a cytolytic antibody directed against the CCR8 receptor that is selectively expressed in tumor-resident T regulatory cells and has been shown to cause PD-1 resistance and have poor outcomes for patients when they have a high level of these cells. We also have two approaches to targeting the myeloid-derived suppressor mechanisms: an antibody against a cytokine, IL-27, casdozokitug, as well as CHS-1000, an anti-ILT4 antibody. All of these antibodies will be looked at in clinical development. The CCR8 and IL-27 antibodies have demonstrated potentiation of the immune response in cancer patients and thus set up a good combination with toripalimab. Next slide. So the overall properties for casdozokitug is it's a high affinity human IgG1 antibody targeting this immune regulatory cytokine. And we have looked at activity in cancer patients and observed immune activation, activity in liver cancer, renal cell carcinoma, and non-small cell lung cancer. Next slide. For the anti-CCR8 antibody, which CHS-114, targeting the Treg cells, this is a afucosylated or an ADCC enhanced antibody that is designed to bind and kill Treg cells. And we are looking at combining this with toripalimab and have demonstrated depletion of Treg cells, both in preclinical models as well as in early clinical studies. Next slide. And lastly, we have an asset, CHS-1000, targeting the anti-ILT4 antibody that changes the immune suppressive macrophages to more of a pro-anti-tumor macrophage, and look to move this to the clinic next year, and we'll present on this preclinical data in the spring of 2024. Next slide.
Thank you, Dr. LaValle. So let me then summarize for you the company's progress with its immuno-oncology portfolio before we take questions. We have first LOQTORZI, an excellent PD-1 developed by our good friends at Junshi. We are now prepared to launch this product in January of 2024 into nasopharyngeal cancer, where we will be the only approved therapy in the United States. We also have casdozokitug, the IL-27 agonist, which we will proceed to develop in conjunction with LOQTORZI in certain cancers. We have as Dr. LaValle described, CHRS 114 in phase 1. This data is now in solid tumors. This has potential in head and neck tumors. And we are expecting in first half of 2024 additional data. And then lastly, our tumor microenvironment focused pipeline has CHRS 1000. This is an ILT4 molecule, and this we plan to file with the US FDA in Q1 2024. Thank you very, very much. Mr. Chen, we are ready for your question.
Thank you, the team of three. So before today, we already collected some of the questions from the investors in the last few days, and we have some new questions here from the audience today. So let's go through a few of them. The first one is asking you. You were saying that you're launching the Latosi now and soon, and so what's the currently is there any other alternatives to the market for that treatment? Or you, especially when we talk about the head and neck cancer.
Dr. LaValle, would you like to take that question?
For nasopharyngeal is a subset of head and neck cancer. And in the United States, before October 27th, there were no approved therapies, including chemotherapy. Although chemotherapy is traditionally used and put on the NCCN guidelines, which is how a lot of physicians will prescribe treatments in the United States, this is the first molecule to demonstrate an overall survival advantage in the disease and should garner the highest level of NCCN listing. And we anticipate that in the near term to be awarded.
There are no other moieties which are licensed for this indication, Mr. Chen, and Keytruda also failed in 2 studies prior to even attempting approval. We believe that there is 2,000 or more patients in the US, and we intend to dominate this particular therapeutic area completely for a long period of time, 20 or more years. There will not be additional therapies that do not include toripalimab, LOQTORZI.
Okay, a couple more questions here. One from the investors asking about your projected sales growth for next year.
Yes, I will have Mr. Reeder address the sales growth of our various products next year. Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chen. We haven't yet provided formal guidance for 2024 for our top line revenue. However, all of our products are in high growth stages right now, whether it's our retina product, similarly, the UDENYCA franchise, as we've now added on 2 additional device presentations, and now with LOQTORZI. So we expect continued market share and revenue growth across all the different product lines into 2024.
We expect continued growth of LOQTORZI every quarter for at least 2.5 to 3 years before reaching market peak. And also this year alone, we have gone from 10.5 to 16.5 market share with UDENYCA growing nicely.
And so one last question before we go, because we're running out of time. So one of the investors asked you, would you consider any strategic partnership opportunities in other markets other than the US, like Europe or Asia?
Yes, we are very active in considering markets outside the US. We are interested in out-licensing ex-US, even to China. Our TMM portfolio that you heard about today, the IL-27, the CCR8, etc. We have global rights to these products. Our intent is to operate only within the United States, so we welcome opportunities to out-license these products outside of our territory.
Thank you for your time here today, Denny, Paul, and Teresa, for joining us to answer the questions and your presentations.
Thank you, Gilbert. We appreciate attending your conference. Good night.